Okay, let's unpack this DEPT Q. We've got, a whole stack of sources here. Reviews, recaps, interviews, even bits about the justice system. We're diving deep into this Netflix series today.
Yeah, and it's definitely standing out, isn't it? It's not just like another police procedural. People are saying it blends that Nordic Noir feel with intricate British mystery plots, and maybe even some of that deep character focus you see in American dramas.
Right. It's really digging into cold cases, trauma, and this really unlikely team. Kind of exiled almost.
Exactly. So our mission here really is to go beyond just saying what happens. We want to use all this material to give you something like, analytical notes for the show.
Yeah, break down the main cases, get into the characters because they seem really fascinating, look at the darker themes, and just soak up that whole unique atmosphere.
So if you're curious about the gritty side of cold case work, the psychological stuff the detectives carry, or just what happens when you stick a mismatched team down in the basement, then stick with us. We're going to try and get to the core of what makes DEPT Q tick.
All right, let's start right at the beginning then, because the series opens with this really brutal shooting incident, and it shapes everything, especially for DCI Carl Merck.
Absolutely. And it's not just random violence. The sources make it clear Carl starts to believe it was targeted, a calculated hit.
Which immediately raises the stakes, right?
Yeah.
Who? Why?
And the consequences are just devastating. Carl gets wounded, yeah. But his partner, D.S. Hardy, he's paralyzed.
And worse, a rookie officer and an informant are killed. It's not just setup. This is Carl's big trauma.
Exactly. It's not background noise. It haunts him all season long. You see the PTSD, the survivor's guilt.
That feeling he should have done something different.
Yeah, the crushing weight. And it fuels this, desperate need for redemption. It drives his work, maybe as a way to make up for it somehow.
And what's really interesting reading through this stuff is that it's not wrapped up by the end of the season.
No, not at all. Carl's boss, Moira, she's actually still looking into it, off the books.
With Hardy helping, the partner who's paralyzed.
And there's this suggestion, it links back to some gangster, Eugene Arrington. So even when the main cold case gets solved, this original wound for Carl, it's still open. Hints at more to come, maybe.
So that whole traumatic incident, that's the catalyst for Department Q existing in the first place.
Pretty much. Carl's seen as, well, maybe damaged goods, too volatile, or just difficult. So he gets sidelined, shunted off to run this new cold case unit.
And the location, it says everything, doesn't it? The basement.
Oh, yeah. Literally in the basement. It's symbolic. Marginalized, forgotten, dealing with the cases nobody else wants, out of sight, out of mind.
Moira, his boss, she just wanted him down there alone initially.
Seems like it. Maybe hoping he'd just flounder, get frustrated, quit even. But Carl pushes back. He insists on having an assistant. Maybe needs the help, maybe just resisting being totally isolated.
And that's where Akram Salim comes in, though we know him as Assad first.
Right?
Yeah.
Introduced as a civilian from IT.
Yeah.
Which sounds odd.
Yeah, pairing him with Carl. But it becomes clear pretty fast he's got other skills, a mysterious past.
Definitely not just fixing computers. So their mission, officially, go through these high-profile cold cases, the ones gathering dust.
Justice for forgotten victims. That's the goal, from the basement.
Okay, so let's talk about the main investigation they tackle in Season 1, the big one, the disappearance of Merritt Lingard. 4 years cold.
She was a public prosecutor, well-regarded, but also controversial. Adds a layer right away.
Yeah, and it's actually Akram, or Assad, who pulls her file. He takes the initiative, picks this case the system had basically given up on.
So they start digging into the timeline. What happened when she vanished? She took a trip to this fictional Scottish island, Moor.
The initial assumption was simple. Going to see her father. That was the story.
But DEPT, Q starts poking holes in that pretty quickly.
Right. This is where it gets juicy. They suspect she wasn't entirely straight about the trip. Evidence points maybe she was going to meet someone else. Suddenly, it's a whole different mystery.
And that leads them to uncover she was having an affair, secretly, with a journalist, Sam Haig.
Keeping that hidden was obviously crucial for her.
And the way she did it, using a credit card under a different name.
Yeah, Leela Graham, her mother's name. And this is highlighted as so critical, because it points to a massive failure in the original investigation.
They should have checked that alias, financial records.
Exactly. If they had looked into Leela Graham years ago, they might have found something. Maybe she wouldn't have been captive for so long. It's a real what if.
Wow. And her brother, William, he had a clue too.
Yeah, her younger brother. He saw this distinctive bird logo at home, then on the ferry, around the time she vanished. He drew it, trying to warn her somehow.
But the original cops just dismissed it, thought it was, what, a mythical bird?
Tragically, yeah. But Dept. Q, especially with Rose's research skills digging in, they realize it's important. It's not mythical. It's the logo for Shorebird Ocean Systems.
And that connects to
Lyle Jennings' father's business. And even better, Lyle himself was seen wearing a cap with that exact logo. Suddenly, he's right in the middle of it all.
Okay, so this Lyle Jennings connection, that leads to the big twist at the end, right? The really dark reveal.
The biggest one. The man Merritt was having the affair with, the man she went to meet on the island, the man who abducted and tortured her. It wasn't Sam Hague.
It was Lyle Jennings impersonating him the whole time.
The whole time, expertly. He carried on the affair as Sam, then kidnapped her. And to cover it all up, he killed the real Sam Hague, staged it as a climbing accident.
Gee, so the real Sam Hague wasn't involved at all?
No connection to Merritt. Apparently, Lyle kind of imprinted on him in a correctional facility, learned manipulation techniques from him. It's chillingly calculated.
So who is Lyle Jennings then? And why? Why Merritt?
It goes way back. Not related to her job as a prosecutor. It connects to her youth. The sources say Lyle was, weirdly, unintentionally, the reason she became a prosecutor. Lyle is the brother of Harry Jennings. Merritt dated Harry when she was a teenager, living on a moor with her abusive father.
Okay, so there's a history there.
Okay.
But the motivation, you said it was pathological.
Deeply. Rooted in horrific childhood abuse, he and Harry were tortured by their parents, especially their mother, Ailsa, locked in a hyperbaric chamber, sometimes forgotten there, especially after Harry died.
A hyperbaric chamber, that's specific.
And
Awful.
And disturbingly, Lyle apparently felt no resentment towards his mother for it. Like he accepted it, which tells you a lot about how damaged he was.
So that abuse twisted his whole view of reality.
Completely. He developed this delusion that Harry was still with him, guiding him. He thought his job was to be the protector, like Harry had been. He even mistook the real Sam Hague for Harry at one point.
Believing he had to protect Harry.
And this whole mess of obsession, delusion, trauma, it leads him to kidnap Merritt. And where does he keep her?
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
A hyperbaric chamber.
The very same one. The site of his own childhood torture. His motive seems to be revenge, blaming Merritt somehow for Harry's death, linked back to their past relationship. It's just a terrible cycle of trauma creating more horror.
So the season builds towards finding her, towards rescuing her from Lyle.
Yeah, the final episodes are all about Dept. Q closing in, the tension ramping up, leading to this rescue attempt.
And during the rescue, Carl gets shot again.
He does. But this time, it's protecting Akram. A deliberate act of loyalty, putting himself back in danger after everything, really shows how that team bond has grown.
And Akram. This is where his hidden skills really come out.
Big time. He draws on whatever that past life involved, definitely not IT skills. He's key in subduing Lyle. In the struggle, Lyle ends up getting killed.
What about the mother, Ailsa, the one behind the abuse?
The police corner her as she tries to flee. Rather than face justice, she takes her own life. A grim end, but it feels fitting for the show's dark tone.
But Merritt, is she okay?
She's rescued. Alive. But in critical condition, obviously deeply traumatized after 4 years. The sources say she shows signs of recovery, though. She's reunited with her brother William. So there's some light there, some closure on that case.
But not on Carl's original shooting.
Nope. That thread and Dept Q's existence feels like it's just getting started.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Let's really dig into the characters themselves, starting with Carl Merk. DCI Carl Merk, he's the haunted center of it all.
Definitely. Divorced, lives with his teenage stepson, Jasper. Also have a lodger, Martin. His personal life feels a bit fragmented.
Yeah, he comes across initially as very brooding, maybe lonely. Like his whole identity is just the job, especially after the shooting.
But there's that dry wit, right? That gleaming dark humor that cuts through the gloom sometimes. He's not just a miserable sod.
No, but that shooting, it's left a massive scar. The PTSD, the survivor's guilt, you see it constantly. The panic attacks, losing his temper.
Right. The cracks in that composed, almost dull exterior he tries to project.
And he fights getting help, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. Hates the idea. He's forced into therapy with Dr. Rachel Irving, and he resents it at first. But the sources say it's a journey. He actually starts to realize he needs those sessions.
That's a key part of his arc, then, learning to rely on others, whether it's a therapist or his team.
Exactly. It mirrors his relationship with Akram and Rose. Matthew Goode, who plays him, apparently talked about Carl feeling responsible for everything. That sums up the guilt perfectly.
Goode also mentioned the challenge of playing a Danish character relocated to Scotland and creating secret backstories.
Adding those hidden layers. Viewers describe Carl as, caustic, witty, dry, sometimes a real jag-off.
Yeah, I see that.
But he's compelling, right? Because underneath it all, he's a great detective, driven by that need for redemption. You stick with him, even when he's difficult.
Then there's Akram Salim, Assad, Carl's partner, introduces the IT guy.
Yeah, the civilian who turns out to be so much more. He's the perfect foil for Carl's moodiness.
Calm, level-headed.
Very. And he has this mysterious past in Syria. That's where the skills come from. Investigative instincts, insights, even physical stuff. Clearly not learned fixing printers.
He's the steady hand when Carl's losing it.
Often, yeah. Keeps things grounded. And his own backstory unfolds slowly in these little nuggets. We find out he was a cop in Syria.
And that line about his wife dying because she operated on the wrong person, that sounds heavy.
It's brutal and so cryptic. Hints at some really dark, dangerous stuff in his past, but doesn't spell it out. Leaves you wanting to know more.
We know he moved for his daughter's education, though. Gives him a relatable motivation.
True. But by the end of the season, a lot about Akram is still under wraps. Viewers seem to love him, though. Quiet intelligence, skill. People notice his expressions, the small glances.
Quietly deadly sort of cop. That's a good description.
And that line, Carl, when I'm praying, don't interrupt me. It says a lot about his character, his boundaries.
Okay, rounding out the trio, Rose Knudsen starts as admin support.
Yeah. Seems like she's just there to manage the office. But her skills go way beyond that. She's really sharp.
Perceptive, good researcher, good with people. Sense investigator material.
Totally. But she's sidelined because of her own past trauma. A mental breakdown, PTSD, after a car accident where she hit an elderly couple.
So the bosses, like Moira, think she's better off at a desk.
Pretty much. Protecting her, maybe. Or maybe just underestimating her. But Rose is determined. She wants back in. And DEPT Q, ironically, gives her that chance.
She faces pushback, though, from older male colleagues.
Yeah, the usual stuff. Being belittled, silenced, condescended to. But she holds her own, fights her corner.
And she makes crucial breakthroughs, right? Like finding that final clue about the hyperbaric chamber.
Absolutely. Her research and talking to people like Cunningham and Collins pays off big time. Leah Byrne, the actress, says Rose is clever, just looking for that chance to prove herself again.
So the dynamic between these three, Carl, Akram, Rose, that's really the heart of the show.
Sources say it's absolutely central. This unlikely team, thrown together in the basement. Their differences actually make them work well together.
Carl's cynicism, Akram's calm skills, Rose's sharp mind.
Exactly. They complement each other. And somehow, amidst all the darkness of the cases, there are these moments of, like, dark humor and wit between them.
Keeps it from being totally bleak.
It's essential. And you see Carl, Mr. Resistant to Help, actually start to rely on them. Just like he starts to rely on his therapist.
The loyalty they develop facing the bureaucracy and the danger together.
That's the core strength. It's what makes you root for them, not just for the cases to be solved, but for them to be okay.
What about other key figures? Merritt Lingard, the victim.
Played by Chloe Peary. The performance is described as haunting. She has to show Merritt before cool, blunt, but caring, and then captive suffering, traumatized, but still fighting to live. It's a tough role.
D.S. Hardy, Carl's injured partner.
Jamie Sivs plays him. Paralyzed, but still involved, helping Moira investigate that opening shooting off books. His role is apparently bigger here than in the books.
And Jasper, Carl's stepson.
Yeah, he lives with Carl. Also noted as being more important in this series adaptation, gives us a window into Carl's fractured home life.
And Moira Jacobson, the boss, Kate Dickey.
Right. She assigns Carl to DEPT. Q, involved in the side investigation, known for being blunt, calls the team doolally. Her background's also changed from the books.
Okay, let's dig into the deeper stuff now. The core themes running through DEPT. Q, justice, injustice, systemic failure. That seems huge.
Absolutely central. The whole point of DEPT. Q is pursuing justice for victims the system forgot or failed. It constantly highlights the human cost when cases go cold.
And the system itself is often the antagonist, right? The bureaucracy, the lack of resources.
The basement setting embodies it. Internal politics, obstacles. They're always fighting the system as much as the criminals.
The cases themselves often seem to stem from societal failures, too. People falling through the cracks.
Yeah, the show definitely portrays those darker aspects of society and the built-in problems within the justice system.
It's interesting thinking about the original Danish setting versus the Scottish one. The sources mention the real Danish system having oversight, due process.
Right. And comparing that ideal to the show's reality, this marginalized team bending rules because the system already failed, that contrast makes the theme stronger. It's about the struggle against inertia and failure.
And Lyle Jennings' motive, stemming from that horrific abuse, that points to a failure to protect vulnerable kids, too.
Definitely. It touches on that cyclical nature of violence, how trauma can breed more trauma, and the societal failures that allow that to happen.
Which leads right into the theme of trauma itself and the human psyche.
Fundamental to the show, Carl's journey is defined by his trauma, the PTSD, guilt, panic attacks. It shapes everything he does.
And the work itself takes a toll on all of them, constantly dealing with this darkness.
You see that. And the show dives deep into the perpetrators' minds, too. Lyle's psychology is chillingly explored. His sociopathy, his delusion, it's explicitly linked back to that hyperbaric chamber abuse.
Suggesting that profound trauma can be the source of, well, horrific actions.
That's the connection the show makes. It's disturbing, but it's trying to understand the roots of this behavior.
So building on that, the nature of evil itself.
Yeah, the show examines it through characters like Lyle. His ability to impersonate Sam, carry out the torture without apparent remorse. It's chilling.
Does it suggest evil comes from society or past trauma?
It definitely raises questions. By linking Lyle's actions so strongly to his abuse, it suggests that conditions and experiences can contribute to or enable what we perceive as evil. Doesn't excuse it, but explores where it might come from.
And weaving through all this darkness is that theme of unlikely partnerships and loyalty again.
It's the counterpoint. Carl, Akram, rose so different, carrying their own baggage but finding strength in each other.
United by the mission, finding justice for the forgotten.
Exactly. Their bond, the humor, the reliance. It shows how connection can help overcome systemic obstacles and personal demons. It's a buffer against the grimness.
Let's talk about the world itself, the atmosphere, the style. It feels very specific.
Oh, absolutely. It's got that dark, gritty, melancholic vibe, firmly in the Nordic Noir camp, even being set in Scotland. Someone called it a grimy, gothic treat.
Yeah, that fits. And the tone balances the suspense with that dark humor we mentioned.
Mostly through the dialogue between the leads. One source felt maybe the witty banter wasn't always totally realistic for cops under pressure, but it's a key part of the show's flavor.
And Edinburgh as the setting. That seems crucial.
Hugely. Moving from Copenhagen was a big shift, but Edinburgh apparently worked really well. Judicial center, medieval meets modern, a city of contradictions. It really becomes its own character. Glasgow was used too.
The way it's shot, capturing the beauty but also the darkness.
Yeah, the cinematography gets praise for that. Shows the majesty but also gets right into the darkness, the underbelly, the wealth disparity. Visually contrast the brutalist police station with maybe more ornate or rural locations too.
How does it stack up in terms of realism, police procedures and stuff?
Well, it shows them doing procedural things, checking CCTV, interviews, financials, so it nods to realism. But sources question how often they just go it alone, break rules, and don't seem to get much heat for it from bosses like Moira. Suggests they take some liberties for dramatic effect compared to real police work.
So it's not strictly a documentary on police procedure?
Definitely not. The focus is more on this marginalized team fighting the system. The believability is more in the character psychology, like Lyle's pathology, within the thriller genre and its focus on trauma.
Does it feel authentic in portraying the darker side of society?
Yeah, that aspect feels true to the genre and the themes. Reflects those undercurrents of injustice and vulnerability that this setting hints at.
And finally, how does it work as an adaptation of the books, Jussi Adler-Olsen's novels?
Right, it's based on the first book, The Keeper of Lost Causes. Importantly, it's not a reboot of those earlier Danish films.
The author had issues with those films.
Apparently so. Felt they strayed too far, ignored his input, led to different producers and actors later on. So adapting this material has a bit of a history.
And this Netflix version makes big changes too. Setting, character names.
Huge changes. Copenhagen to Edinburgh is the biggest. Assad becomes Akram Salim. Merritt Lingard is Merritt Lingard. Marcus Jacobson is Moira Jacobson.
And character backgrounds change too. Rose is completely different. Hardy and Jasper more important.
Exactly. Significant alterations. But the creators said they aimed to capture the essence. Like, yes-anding the book, taking the good stuff and pushing it further, coloring in details for TV.
So different, but maybe fans of the books might still connect with it.
That seems to be the hope expressed in the sources. It's its own interpretation.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. DEPT Q sounds like a really layered series. The cold cases are complex, but so are the people solving them.
Definitely. You've got Carl, the brilliant detective, totally broken by his past, needing redemption. Akram, the calm, skilled partner with all these secrets. And Rose, sharp and determined, fighting for her place.
And they're dynamic, plus that atmospheric Edinburgh setting and the willingness to tackle heavy themes like trauma and injustice. It makes for a compelling watch, even if it's pretty dark.
It really asks you to look deeper. At the cases, sure, but also at the people. What drives them, what haunts them.
And while the main Merritt Lingard case gets resolved, that opening shooting incident is still hanging there. Feels like there's definitely more story to tell.
For sure. Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you to chew on, thinking about this team in the basement. In a system that seems built to sideline difficult cases, maybe even difficult people, is the best way to get justice for the forgotten victims to play by the rules? Or do you sometimes need a team exiled to the basement, willing to bend those rules and pursue the truth no matter what?